But then in terms of aging, yeah, it's, again, I know there are people who bristle at the idea of terroir within whiskey. And I think the idea of being able to taste where this barley was specifically grown, there's a commodification that happens during the distillation process. Like you are stripping those nuances out. But to me, terroir of whiskey is leaning into the opportunities and challenges of where you live. And so for us, we are in the desert. You know, we are low humidity, high temperature. But on top of that, we have these really aggressive day-to-day shifts. So like our diurnal shift, our 24-hour shift, on average is 30 to 40 degrees. So in the winter, I can leave my house to go to the distillery and it's 30 degrees, and I'm leaving the distillery to go home in the afternoon and it's 70. And so if you don't do much of any HVAC, any sort of climate control in your aging space, you're getting a lot of push and pull. Another way to kind of touch on how we break with that Scottish tradition, not only are we using new charred oak, we almost exclusively use quarter casks. We're using 15-gallon barrels. So we have a whole bunch of surface area of our spirit coming into a whole bunch of surface area of the wood. And this will be a digression that you can edit out later if you're like, man, Mark got way into the weeds on this, but a lot of people will try to tell you smaller barrels means faster aging, and that's not true. Smaller barrels means faster extraction. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who are utilizing small format barrels that don't know how to do it properly. And so you can create really beautiful spirits with small format barrels, with really aggressive aging restrictions, if you know what you're doing. And the biggest thing is just how narrow you make the cuts. So, and again, we can talk about when you're going into a 53-gallon barrel and you know you're going to be able to sit for 5, 6, 10, 20 years, you can make very wide cuts. You can let some of that acetone come off in the heads, and you can let some of those fusel oils start to pull off in the tails that, as new make, it's not going to taste great. You go into a big barrel, you let it sit, it's going to esterize, you're going to get these very beautiful flavors that come out. You can't do that in small barrels. You don't have the time to do that, because if you let a small barrel over extract, it's like over soaking a tea bag. It just becomes really bitter, really astringent, really unpleasant. So a lot of people are surprised to learn average age of our core products, our Classic and Dorado, is 12 months. Like, we are able to get these very nuanced, very beautiful whiskeys in a short amount of time because we're focusing on those constraints versus kind of just being like, well, how you do it for 53 is how you do it for 30, which is how you do it for 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The barrel, like you said earlier, cooperage can be a tricky thing. It's to me, one of the implicit value judgments that accompanies many whiskey enthusiasts at sort of like I do this at home, but not professionally level, is that the older something is, the better it is. I just a slight anecdote to illustrate this. I went to a very, very well-known, prestigious rum bar. I'm not even going to tell you what state this was in, because I don't want to dox them or anything. And the person I was with was, just kind of nursing their drink, and we were planning on leaving, going somewhere else, but I knew I had at least 15 or 20 minutes to kill. So I ordered an ounce of don't want to dox them either, a very well-known rum distiller's 21 or 23-year-old from somewhere in the Caribbean, we'll say. And I tasted it, and the bartender came over to, I assume for me to fluff them, right? To congratulate them on pouring me this pour. They're like, kind of like imagine wiping the glass and just kind of looking over and being like, so how do you like it? And I was just like,
the raised eyebrow,
yeah. So how is it? And I was just like, honestly, it, to quote Forrest Gump, she tastes like cigarettes. So it didn't do anything for me. Just having that massive age statement on there, it was actually one of the worst pours I think I'd ever had. And so it's something that I've come to categorically reject, but I don't think it's something like, and again, the small barrels, it's this heuristic that people apply, like, oh, you use small barrels? Oh, well, forget that. So I'm really glad that you're making the point about the cuts. And again, this is what I mentioned earlier. This is the intersection of the process and the end product and the flavor notes that we like, right? So I'm glad that we're zeroing in on this, because those narrow cuts, right? So I'm looking at the rules that you were saying. It's gotta go, kind of below 80%. And then you are imposing another restriction on yourself in-house, which is, all right, we're going to do this narrow cut, which means we're throwing away. Now, throwing away, I'm sure that there are plenty of ways to upcycle, recycle, reuse some of this distillate. You're not just like walking outside with slop buckets and pouring it in the parking lot, but you're only utilizing for what goes in the barrel and turns into your end product a much narrower band than many distilleries would, which has cost implications for you guys, right? So like there's some unit economics involved in here, and that's a significant sacrifice to make in service of that end product. So I just wanted to call that out.